Hello.
Hello. I haven't seen you in a long time.
I know, even though we're in the same city.
Yeah, I think we're like a mile apart, maybe.
Probably.
Something.
Which you're not at your old place in Marigny though.
What?
You're not at your old place in Marigny though.
No, I am subletting that out right now. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Hello?
I'm in the room. Hello?
Yeah, you're for some reason the video is frozen for you. Hold on one second. Let me try something. Hello? Hmm. Hello, Brittany, are you there? Hello? I still can't see you for some reason. Oh, there you are.
Okay.
Okay, good.
I turned my Wi-Fi off. It was having issues. I've never done this before.
That's
So,
what everyone has said so far.
yeah.
Nobody's done this before.
What made you think of doing this?
Um, I always secretly wanted to be a talk show host when I was a kid, and this was like, oh, I get to do a show from my room.
It's very neat.
Yeah, it's fun, and it's been good so far. You are, I think, actually one of the most anticipated people I've had in terms of people who've liked the image or reposted about it. So we'll see how. Usually we only have about a dozen people, but I have a feeling we might have more with you.
Let's spill all the secrets.
Yeah, exactly.
I of
I'm
course.
wearing black in your honor too.
Uh, I'm wearing white
Um,
because I'm very pure now.
uh huh. Tell me about the pink room.
Um, it's funny. My mom finds it very ironic. When I was little, I wanted to have a room that was painted all black. No
Mm.
surprise. And I hated the color pink. And I think from dwelling in the shadow for so long, I needed to have an escape. So
Mm.
I have this pink. Everything is pink in here, and it's just very calming. Yeah.
Interesting. Have you had a black room before?
No, my mom wouldn't let me. I think my mom is here. Maybe she said I saw some notification from my mother. So
Oh,
yeah.
my mom was watching
Um,
yesterday.
but pink is very feminine, and I think the rest of the house is kind of gender neutral, even masculine. So it's nice to come in here and see pink.
There used to be that sort of association we have between pink and blue. It used to be reversed. People used to think that pink and red were a color for boys, and that blue was a color for girls.
Oh
Um,
right, I think
yeah,
there's
like right up to
speaking
the
of
beginning of
speaking of
from the beginning of the
France.
20th century, I think.
Yeah, there. I went on a tour in Versailles, and all of the when they were talking about the portraits, they were like, "What? This is actually a young boy in pink," and they went over that whole explanation, which would
Yeah.
make more sense of me having a pink room.
Well, I
So,
think they thought pink was more, I guess, bloody and virile, and that blue was softer and more calm or something.
hmm. Do you know
Um,
when it switched or why?
I think it was sometime in the 20th century, but I don't know why. I really have no idea. They used to
Yeah.
also they used to call all something. Oh God, this is a really interesting thing, but I'm forgetting the details. They used to call all kids boys, or maybe they called all kids girls. It was one of those things, like all babies. Girls was just a word for babies, or maybe it was boys was just a word for babies. And that's partly why they used to just dress up all kids in little dresses.
Hmm.
It wasn't the sort of gender wasn't considered something that you even thought about with babies at some point.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't know why that is, but that's the way things were.
It's probably yeah. We somehow devolved since then. So
Yeah, yeah. We got ahead of ourselves. I think when it came to assigning colors to different genders. Um, have you always worn black as much as you do?
um, I It was definitely my favorite color when I was little. Actually, black, white, and red, which I have on.
Mm.
That was my favorite color, and I was more into Halloween than anything else. So I was I was very blonde naturally as a child with long golden locks in Southern California. So Halloween was kind of the one day I could express myself, and I used to spray paint my hair black. And I was an executioner at 4 years old at school. Um, and yeah, there was a fascination, but I couldn't express myself, and fashion was never something I was really interested in. I just wore clothes that my mother would pick out, or that I was forced to go back to school shopping and pick out something. Or I don't think I really thought much about clothing until the past 5 years,
Hmm.
10 years. I forget how old I am. So
That's so interesting because it seems like, I mean, you've got such a distinctive style. Although it definitely has evolved as well, since at least since I've known you.
yeah, I think I'm drawn to express. I think when you start being creative in general, it pours out in more aspects of your life. So somehow this woman in black, or I call them my uniforms. I have very minimal outfits, and you can't see, but I'm wearing your pants. I tried to.
Oh,
I
good.
can't even show you. Um,
We need to alter this
yeah,
as soon as we can
it's good for
start
sitting. It's good for
touching
sitting
people.
down.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of a uniform. And growing up, I think I hated the idea of uniforms and associated them with nuns and private school. But that idea of something really being a staple that you can put on every day is something I'm interested in. And so I've found a few uniforms over the years. But my preferred clothing are 1930s slips that I wear in the house.
Oh, that's your sort of lounging around wear?
Yes, I'm working hard at home all the time, so
Uh-huh. Oh,
it's
right.
my
So
workout.
that's
It's my workout.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's interesting because I mean, when you work, what do you wear? I mean, do you because you're often a model in your own work, right? So you have to wear whatever costume you want, right? But
Well,
is that necessarily
there's
something to be wearing while you're arranging scenery and setting up a camera?
um. Well, there's also the dark room, which is um more feels like going to work, and I can't. I'm wearing. I'm dealing with chemicals, so I can't actually wear anything nice. So I, when I'm in the dark room, I wear Crocs and
Wow.
and weird T-shirts and sweatpants, and it's kind of this whole other half of my work life. Because I can't wear
Wow.
anything I can ruin in the dark room,
Yeah.
and
This is. I feel like
then
I'm getting a scoop here.
it's pretty hot. If you can't love me at my dark room, you don't get me at my 1930s slip.
That's
Uh,
good. That's a good way of putting it.
yeah.
Um,
But I think everyone's kind of getting a feel of what it's like to work from home in quarantine, and to really see if you do want to get dressed every day and show up. I feel like you're doing a great job at getting dressed every day.
Me? Oh,
Yeah.
that I do. I do have a. I have like an old vintage jumpsuit that I wear. That I wear if I'm doing like if I'm trying to paint or draw, or if I'm just going to the hardware store or something. So I do have like down clothes. They're not sweatpants. I don't. I don't think I own any sweatpants. No, I don't.
No.
Um,
I could imagine so.
like speaking of working at home, this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you. You were one of the first people I thought of to talk to about this. Is that like your your work, your project, your long term project is called In Rooms,
Hmm.
and it's much of it is set inside, in interiors, indoors, and a lot of it has themes of isolation and aloneness. Um, do you feel like you were ready for this? Like, is this an ideal working situation for you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really bizarre to consider what my work is about, and on top of that, consider how the themes of mental illness and health come up in isolation. And I keep joking that I was preparing for this my whole life. So I feel oddly inspired and relieved, as if everyone's on my level all of a sudden. And I think other people with anxiety feel a bit similar. There's this notion, I think before um, the quarantine, if you're isolated and creative a lot and dealing with these themes, there's often anxiety of what I should be leaving the house or I should be doing something else with my life. And because that's no longer an option, it's totally taken out that anxiety of fear of missing out or the fear of I'm not extending myself to the world enough. So I feel mentally prepared for this, and I've battled a lot of demons. So I think it's normal in isolation to start confronting yourself slowly, and maybe now people can imagine if they were isolated for the last 5 years like I have, that's how I've kind of made my work essentially.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I first moved down here, or when we were first planning to move down here, and we hung out when Sarah and I came to visit, you said that your process involves being something of a hermit. Because I think Sarah and I were talking about how excited we were to come to such a social city like New Orleans, and you were like, "Oh, well, that's funny you mentioned that because I don't actually socialize that much. I stay at home and work, and then I go out once in a while."
Yeah, and it's recent. Well, I just saw Sarah. I've been going out more now that I'm in quarantine than ever before. So I go to the park. I go to the park every day, and then I saw Sarah. Um, so it's odd how that switched around. Because well, you've created this show, which I'm sure satisfies that kind of social need. Um,
Yeah, everyone's
that
been kind of saying that they've been like calling their friends up more than they used to, and sort of things that you took for granted, like seeing people. People now just kind of have to make more of an effort. So they have been.
Yeah. Have you gotten into Zoom?
I've done some Zoom stuff. Yeah, I spoke to do you know Gwendolyn?
Not well. Not well.
I spoke.
I
I
think
spoke to
we
her
met
class
once
at Vassar.
ages ago.
Oh, okay. I spoke to her class at Vassar via Zoom, which was kind of cool. And I've been doing Zoom with my.
Oh, that's so neat.
Yeah, that was.
Was it a classics class, or what did you talk?
It was a class on fashion, philosophy, and culture. Basically, I think it was called Fashion and Its Enemies. And so I came and spoke to the dandy. The week that they were doing dandyism, I came and spoke to them. It was great. Um, but I was wondering, so you were saying like this might get people to confront their own, inner selves, I guess. People who might not normally do that because they aren't forced to that kind of isolation. Your work is all about confronting that kind of stuff. But what do you say to someone who's now confronting this for the first time and maybe they don't like what they see?
Oh, God.
Or they're afraid of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people, and I saw this more in New York, that just can't be alone for one day, or they can't have a night without plans, and they have to see someone. And a part of that is just not being alone. There's so much more going on. There's also taking in the global crisis that's going on and feeling a sense of loss and uniting with other people. So I think on top of that, there's a lot more going on, and it's good to be really patient with yourself. I think it's normal to not like a lot of things that you see if you're not used to really being isolated. And I find reading memoirs or books really helpful, especially if involving mental health or mental illness, or, as you know, I like Jungian shadow work. I feel like that provides a lot of light for people looking to go on a journey inward. It's important. I think the whole world is in this limbo state right now where things just weren't working, and whether it's capitalism, greed, how we're treating the climate, you could say that our shadow as an entire world is being reflected at us, and it's really time for everyone to do some kind of inner work to be a better person. How you approach that lightly while you're isolated is hard to sum up. I think just being kind and slow, and there's a lot of resources on the internet too. Reach out to me.
So much of your work is about sort of confronting yourself in the mirror, confronting your shadow. A lot of it strikes me as quite sort of brave work that you put out there. You show yourself to be vulnerable at different times. I feel like that would be very... And I know that you've inspired a lot of people who I've seen online who are fans of yours who have cited you as an influence in their own work. It seems like such a kind of daunting first step to take, to say, okay, I'm going to put myself out there in this way that's incredibly personal and let other people come look at it. How do you sort of get across that first leap into that work?
Well, I have a unique journey of getting into it, because when I was 21, I was on a reality television show, and I was on America's Next Top Model. I used to never talk about it, but millions of people all over the world suddenly had this idea of me, and I felt like my name was taken away from me and my identity was taken away from me. So in a way, my photography was a way for me to fight back and want to be seen for who I actually was, because I felt like my identity was taken away from me. So that gave me this special experience that made me rebel against that, essentially. But I think that it's, I try to make work that has a universal feeling to it. The name In Rooms is something I hope more people can relate to, rather than being like, oh, this is Brittany Markert. It's kind of a world I hope people can find solace in. It's difficult to make right now, and I've been stepping away from it because of the themes in it. But I think ultimately, if you're creating, you should try to be yourself and express yourself. And I find that the work I put out there and the best work I do is just when I'm trying to be honest. And it can be difficult to get over that step, but from my experience, it does not feel good to be loved or to be admired for something that you're not.
Right. If I could interrupt for 1 second, let me see tell me if I'm right when I rephrase it this way. Was it that you felt someone else, when you were on this reality show, you felt someone else was telling your story, and your art became a way to take that back and tell it your own way? Is that accurate?
Well, it was overwhelming that there were blogs dedicated to me on the internet with my name. Like, the show doesn't release your last name, but it's not hard for people to figure out what your name is. And everyone involved, probably in reality television or America's Next Top Model is forever on Google, and they're, you can find information about them. So people just had this ideas of me, and I would pretty much anywhere I went people would say, "Oh, you're Brittany from America's Next Top Model." And it was very bizarre. I was studying mathematics, and I was Phi Beta Kappa, and then the world placed more value on this idea of me being a model with no voice, really. So it didn't. Yeah, I felt this need to express myself. But it took me a few years after that experience to pick up a camera and start doing my own work. And still, it took years for me kind of to figure out what I was trying to create. Yeah.
Your background.
It's been a journey.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I've found interesting is your background as someone with a degree in mathematics. Do you find that because photography is such a technical and mechanical art form, that background in science education, has influenced your work at all?
Oh, yeah. It's hard to explain the brain of someone that does math, but everything is a problem, essentially, and there's always a perfect solution. So I think in a formulaic way of seeing art or values of gray or light, to me, there's always a unique solution when a photograph, for example, feels perfect, or a piece of art, or editing film. So it's been definitely very helpful with the technical aspect in printing and stuff like this. I can't believe now that I'm like over a decade out of my degree that I got a degree in math. So it feels like another lifetime ago, but it's definitely in my system of how I process, of how I write in such a mathematical way or speak weird. I think it's very mathematical, but it ultimately led me to here. And
yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned solutions, because that's something that I think it's not common to every art form to kind of think in that way. And I would imagine that photography, specifically analog photography, would lend itself quite well to that, because it's not the kind of thing like writing where you go back and continually revise. Analog photography is much more something where you have to set things up and try to capture a specific thing. You can go back and, I guess, alter things, but that's not generally the idea. Or it's not like painting where you can just paint over the thing. You have to set up a whole shot again and do that kind of thing. So the idea of a solution in art is it's something that I wouldn't have thought of as a way of thinking about it. But I imagine photography would lend itself quite well to that kind of thinking.
Yeah, I'm not sure if other people think of it like that. There's, in the nature of how I'm making work, for example, I have, I think, 10 rolls of film that are undeveloped, and I'll save up film for months and then develop it all at the same time. And so I get back maybe 10 to 15 contact sheets of images, and that's where the math comes in, of looking at what I have and finding an answer, so to speak, and trying to figure it out. Because I don't know most of the time what I'm actually doing or creating. Sometimes it feels clear, and then others, like the recent piece I just shared about that I made that's like the one thing I made in quarantine, called Judgment Day. It took me like over a month to even see it in my contact sheet pile. I just got all my film back and thought, oh, I'm a failure. I suck. There's nothing to see here. So So I think that's the math for me, is editing and weaving together. For me, it's like writing. I don't know what it's like to write. I can't pretend to, but with me, I imagine it's like free writing, and there's all these sentences everywhere in the contact sheets, and I'm trying to really hone in on what's going on in my work, but what reflects the outside world too. And then there's like the aha moment where the solution comes out, I think.
That's really interesting. I love that you say that you've expressed sort of how long a process it is for you, because I think people think of photography as being a quite instantaneous thing, especially now that everyone has a camera in their pocket. So when they go and take a picture, they experience it as something immediate. But I think it's instructive for people to hear you talk about how you wait a long time before you get the results back. And it sounds to me like what you were saying is that sometimes you're quite surprised by what you have, and that it's not exactly what you had expected when you actually set it up and took the photographs. You find things in there that you weren't.
I think I talk a lot more about everything on I have a private subscription Patreon, and I really talk every day. So I feel like everyone there knows all of my woes of being in rooms, but there's a lot of pressure and ideas of photography today to just have content all the time and new content. And it was really difficult at first when I realized that it might take me 3 months to get a picture. And that's kind of the average I'm at, is every 3 to 4 months I get one picture. And so it's a very slow process. But I like to think of creation as a marathon. So when I die, if I have 40 great pictures, that's kind of the game I'm in for. But I think, it depends on your work. Like fashion photography, you're so used to people take a bunch of photos and get 12 images for a story, or on your phone you can take so many photos. And this is just a very different game, and I do find it very frustrating. I wish I could. I always want to have more great work, but you can't force it, and it is very slow. So I think to anyone else that's struggling with that too, that it's perfectly normal to take your time and to work slowly and thoughtfully too.
Yeah, I think patience is kind of critical to really great art, isn't it? You really can't rush these things. I wanted to ask specifically about a few things about in rooms. So over the past few years, you've developed a few characters as well, often played by you.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about those people and where they live and where they come from and where they might be going?
Yeah. Do you want me to get someone out of the closet?
If you'd like, feel free to.
What character?
Well, the most striking one that springs to mind is the bald gentleman.
Oh, yes. I was looking around to see if he was here somewhere, but I have my portfolio. It's weird that I think he's like in this room.
That's interesting.
Well, a lot of my work is centered around psychology and the unconscious. So I try to reflect in my work the stages of becoming. And that's why it also takes about a season to make something new, because humans don't evolve that quickly, especially once you're in your 30s and your 20s, things are just popping in and out. But now it's very slow. So after I had completed my second book, which is a lot about the shadow, in kind of a natural Jungian evolution, although I wasn't aware of it, I started focusing a lot on masculinity. And this was at the time of, I think, Harvey Weinstein was going on. There was a lot of things coming to the surface about toxic masculinity. And ever since I was young, I had been attracted to or drawn to bald older men. And then it became this point where I really struggled with my own gender identity, and I spent that whole year kind of wondering if I was trans masculine, or when I was little, I went by a boy's name for years, JJ. And I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to become the ideal man in my head, which is a bald man in a suit with glasses.
Mm.
And I got a whole team together in New York, and it was a 4-hour makeup thing. And through my work and becoming these ideal selves or ideal personas in my imagination, it actually heals it, and I move on from it, and I learn a lot. So he came out of me, and at the time I really didn't know what to make of it. But I wish I could pull him out of the closet easily, but it's not that easy to put him on.
Sure. Well, it's interesting to me that in your mind, a masculine ideal is a bald man with glasses. I mean, that's not the mainstream of a masculine ideal, right?
No, he's almost like a professor.
The mainstream ideal would be perfect eyesight, muscles, full head of hair.
I want a bald old man that's very smart. Yeah. That's kind of my ideal, the professor archetype. Mm. I've always been fascinated or drawn to, or there's a guy in the Quarter actually who works at an antique store on I think Royal Street, closer to Canal.
Is it the guy with the bow tie?
Yes.
Yeah, I know who you mean.
So he's also a part of that.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
It's not like I want to marry them. I've never wanted to be with these people. I see bald old men in suits with glasses, and something just comes over me. That's not sexual, but I think in becoming that, it realized that the things I was reflecting in them were characters of myself that I wasn't allowing myself to be, and that's a lot of times what a lot of it, the shadow